All right, welcome everybody to our Clarke Middle School Town Hall as we get ready for the start of the 2020-21 school year, which will be starting virtually in just about 2 weeks. First, I'll say I apologize for the technical difficulties that we had earlier today. Apparently, there's a limit to the number of live YouTube videos that you can process all simultaneously, and Clarke County is really busy right now trying to make sure that we're communicating well with our school communities, and there were just too many other live streams going on for us to be able to manage to get live this evening or this afternoon. But we are all still here. We're going to make sure that we give you an update on where we are in terms of our health planning, our instructional planning for all of our special populations. We've got a handful of questions that have been submitted through the Town Hall Forum form that was shared, and we're going to make sure that we answer those. And then, as I've been saying in my letters each week, we are going to continue to hold live question and answer sessions really weekly through the first 2 weeks of school, or until people just stop showing up, because we know that there's a big need for information, that things are very different than they've ever been before, and we want to make sure that you have the information that you need in order to make good decisions for yourself and for your kids. But before we do that, I do just want to take this opportunity. Not coming back live has sort of taken away some of the chances that I have to introduce new members of our faculty, and I'm super pleased to introduce Miss Tracy Neal as an additional assistant principal at Clarke Middle School this year. We were very fortunate that our population has grown to the point where we now earn 2 full-time assistant principals. Miss Neal comes to us with a breadth of experience across multiple settings. She's worked in schools in Georgia, in Florida. She's worked in schools internationally. She's been public, she's been private, she's been charter. And so I'm really excited about the instructional lens that she brings to our school from such a diverse set of experiences. And I really think that she's going to be able to identify some places where we can change our practices and really improve for the better. So welcome to Miss Neal. I hope that when we are back in person, that everyone will give her a warm Clarke Middle welcome. And then I also just want to take a second and let the other members of our panel who are going to be speaking with us tonight introduce themselves. Can we start with you, Nurse Kurish?
I am Katie Kurish. I am the school nurse at Clarke Middle School.
And Mr. Batson?
Yeah, my name is Chris Batson. I'm a 6th grade social studies teacher, as well as one of 2 athletic directors.
And Miss Lang?
Hi, good evening. I'm Kimberly Lang. I'm the special ed team leader at Clarke Middle.
All right. Thank you to all of our panelists for taking the time this evening. I know our days have gotten really long as we're getting our frantic preparations done for September 8th. And so I appreciate y'all taking the time to stay this evening. To give everybody out there at home sort of an idea of what's going to happen over the next couple of minutes is we're going to do some brief updates just to give you some general information about how we're preparing for the school year. And then we're going to pause. We're going to go to the questions that were submitted. We're going to try to answer each of those. And then we'll go from there. So we're going to start this evening with a quick update from our school nurse on our health situation.
Thank you, Mr. Penley. So concerning our numbers, I don't have a specific update for that, but I can tell you what we're doing. In our schools right now, we are following the DPH guidelines. And if you've ever heard my boss, Amy Roark, speak, she always says that every time we say something, we're already behind because it's changing so quickly. So we are trying to stay on top of those as best as we can. That includes mask wearing, staying greater than 6 feet apart from each other, and not being near each other for more than 15 minutes. And the school nurses are working on contact tracing right now, and we are just going to continue educating ourselves so that we can keep everybody safe and healthy.
Thank you. And I'll follow up with that and just say we are being super cautious as a building. As we've welcomed teachers back into the building on an alternating schedule, we are being very cautious to make sure that we're keeping all of our teachers safe, because ultimately we want them healthy so that they can teach your kids starting on September 8th. And I do just want to point out, I'm remembering something that was said in the early days of the pandemic in March and April, that if we do everything right, it's going to seem like we've overreacted. And I just sort of want to point out that there is this level of caution that we have to keep. And if we maintain that level of caution, people are not going to get sick, and it's going to look like we didn't need to be that cautious, when really that's the proof that that caution was what we really should have been doing. And so as a building, that's sort of the philosophy that we've taken so that we can keep all of our teachers safe. And then once we are ready to return to face-to-face instruction, we'll take that same approach, thinking about our students as well. I'm going to shift them from talking about health and just give you a quick instructional update. I've talked in my parent coffees over the last few weeks about how we've taken sort of a 3+1 approach to our planning for online instruction starting on September 8th. The first sort of layer of that is our work with teachers, where we've been revisiting the unique needs of adolescent learners. I know all of you who have a rising 7th grader know that middle schoolers are a unique creature and they require some very specific type of handling. And so we are reviewing what that means, what the characteristics of adolescent learners are, what sort of collaboration and engagement they need in order to learn at their most effective and efficient way. And then we've taken that and we've tried to approach it through the lens of the tools that we have and how we might meet the needs of adolescent learners with those tools. And that's one of the layers of preparation that we've done. The second layer is with our instructional infrastructure. And by that, I mean, when students come into the building, we have hallways and we have signs all over the place, and we have all of these things that help us direct kids and get them where they need to be and make sure that learning takes place. In an online environment, we've got to shift that. And so we're working on building websites, building Zoom classrooms, building student schedules in a way that it's going to really quickly, seamlessly, and easily communicate to students where they're supposed to be and how they're supposed to access their classroom and their classwork. And so that's the second layer, is creating all of the documents and pieces that's going to help support the instruction that we're going to provide on September 8th. And then the final piece is on communicating with our school community and assessing readiness for online learning. So I sent out a survey, I believe it was 3 weeks ago, and I think I've put it in my principal's letter every week since then, asking parents to give us some information about your child's situation at home, whether they have a working computer from CCSD, whether you have reliable internet access, whether they have a quiet place where they can do their schoolwork every day, because we feel like all of that information is going to help us plan well for the instruction that we're going to provide. It's also going to help us make sure that we've stored up enough resources so that if we need to replace computers, replace chargers, or do things like that, that we're ready to do it. And so if you didn't fill out that survey, hopefully you've gotten a phone call. We've had a number of members of our staff calling all of our parents, because we want to have 100% participation in that survey. I believe as I checked it today, we were at about 600 that we had positively called or that had filled out the survey, which means we've got about 200 families that are left to call between today, tomorrow, and the next day. And I like to think that by the end of the week, we'll have heard from 100% of our families and have a real clear picture of the needs in our school community. And then I said +1 because there's one other layer that we're sort of doing, but it's a really small core group of people in the building. We are recognizing that as much as we're having to shift and change and plan and prepare for digital learning, that we also have to keep an eye on face-to-face return, that ultimately our goal is for students to return to the school building face-to-face whenever we can do it safely. And we've got to have plans in the back of our head about how we're going to make the transition from digital learning to in-person learning, but also have we stored up enough supplies? Have we revisit our schedule? Have we done all of the things that we need to do to make sure that we're ready to open for face-to-face instruction as well? And so just to sort of give you a quick idea instructionally what school will look like come September 8th, Clarke Middle, like all of the other middle schools, is going to run a 5-period day. And we're going to have 5 60-minute periods each day. It's going to start at 9 a.m. Students will have 2 classes in the morning, one from 9 to 10 and another from 10 to 11. We're going to break for lunch from 11 to 12. That's going to be a consistent lunch across all school buildings in Clarke County, elementary, middle, and high. And then in the afternoon, they'll take 3 more classes. So of their 5 classes, 4 of them will be core content classes of math, ELA, social studies, or science. And then that 5th class each day will be a connections class. We sort of struggled back and forth with our decision about how to handle connections. And ultimately, we decided we wanted to make sure that connections classes were able to give kids an enriching experience. And so we wanted to make sure that students didn't just have 1 connections class. So we are going to have each student taking 2 connections classes. They'll see one of those classes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. They'll see the other class on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Fridays, and again, this is common across all of our middle schools, Fridays will be reserved for primarily asynchronous learning. That means it'll be opportunities for students to catch up on work that they need to finish from earlier in the week. Our teachers will provide individualized work for students who maybe need extra support or who need enrichment or acceleration. And there'll be opportunities for students who have special needs to get one-on-one and small group support on those Fridays as well. And then we also have a very short advisement block that we've built into every day. So at the end of the day from 3 to 3:30 is our built-in advisement time. This is an opportunity for us to engage in social emotional learning, to check in as a school community, to discuss things that might be happening within our school community, and to address anything that's happening sort of on a week-to-week basis. And I think that about covers most of our instructional updates. At this point, I'm going to ask Ms. Lang if she wouldn't mind sort of just giving a quick update on our work for our students who are served through special education.
Thank you, Mr. Penley. So I wanted to explain that Clarke Middle School and especially the special ed department realize how the change to virtual learning is going to be a challenge or maybe a challenge to certain people, and that the special ed department is working really hard on developing learning plans, which we call virtual learning plans, to make sure that the students are set up for success from day one. The part of that learning plan is really talking with the parents to see what you need, guardians, what do you need, and working on creating tutorials or whatever it is that you need to help your student that first day. Those virtual learning plans have been occurring since August 13th. We found out about those when we came back to school. It takes the IEP that a student has and it just adapts it to a virtual learning platform. And we have completed about 49% of them as of today. And so I am confident, like Mr. Penley was earlier about communication with parents, will be complete with 100% by September 4th. So we hope to have them all in place by September 8th. If you have not heard from a case manager or anybody from Clarke Middle and you know your student has an IEP, please reach out to me. I can put my email in the chat or we can somehow put that out on Facebook so that you can get hold of me. One thing I do want to say with respect to the daily schedule, it does allow for some flexibility with our teachers to offer one-to-one time, some tutoring time, time with parents face-to-face that is away from the classroom. So if that is something that is a benefit to you, please reach out to that case manager. I know that I'm excited about school starting. I can't wait to see our students for this school year. Thanks, Mr. Penley.
All right, thank you for that, Ms. Lang. We are, and I'll just sort of segue for a minute and editorialize and say 6 weeks of pre-planning is a long time. And in those first couple of weeks, it was a little bit hard for our teachers to really, conceptualize having kids back in the building. And so our excitement was a little bit muted. It was actually filled with probably a little bit of grief because we were sad that we weren't going to get to see kids come back. And now that we're in this 2-week window leading up to the start of virtual instruction, I am starting to feel a little bit of that excitement come back. Teachers getting really sort of antsy about welcoming their students. One of the practices that we've been trying to do weekly since the second week of pre-planning is our teachers on Thursdays get together and they teach lessons to each other. Because we know that all of our teachers, whether they're first year or 31st year, are doing this and it's going to be new for them, we thought it would be a good idea for them to practice before they're in front of your students. And so that has also generated a lot of excitement as teachers have seen what their colleagues are doing. And I'll say I've been very impressed with what the faculty at Clarke Middle has been able to put together in terms of lessons that don't just feel like probably you're feeling right now watching me just talk at you on a screen, but are really engaging and provide opportunities for collaboration, critical thinking, and engagement in a way that I just didn't think was possible through a virtual environment until I saw what our teachers were able to come up with. So I'm going to shift now and just talk briefly about student meals. I sent in my parent letter, I sent through Campus Messenger and I posted to Facebook. The school nutrition department for Clarke County has sent out a survey. As I think everyone's gotten very aware, there are a couple of different options for food service during the school year. We have locations where you can go and pick up a lunch and you pick up on Monday for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. You can pick up a lunch bag on Thursday for Thursday and Friday. I believe those are prepackaged non-hot meals. And then we also have delivery going into some of our communities, bringing lunches to communities as well. That survey was intended to identify whether those services were sufficient, whether they were meeting all of the needs in our school community. So I highly encourage everyone out there, and I'll post it again this weekend if I need to go and fill that out, because we want to make sure that everyone who wants to get a meal through the CCSD School Nutrition Program has access to a meal through the CCSD School Nutrition Program. And with that, I'm going to go over to some of the questions that were submitted. We only had a handful. I'm going to take that to mean that we've been communicating pretty well. While I'm pulling those up, I'm going to do just a quick shameless plug. Please make sure that you like or follow our Facebook page. I post my principal's letters every Sunday religiously, and that gives you a wealth of information. We also post weekly updates. We post things that are going on, and then during the school year, we post celebrations as well. So it's a really great place for you to keep up to date on what's going on at Clarke Middle School. The other thing I'm going to put a shameless plug in is my Sunday parent letter. I try to do a good job communicating who we are and where we are as a school through that letter. If you're tired of listening to me talk, you can always skip over the first part of that letter, which I know is really just me, getting my thoughts about our school out on a piece of paper. Feel free to skip all the way to the bottom of that. That's, I know, where the good information is, and read those bold-faced updates, because those are the ones that are really going to give you the information so that you know what's going on at school. And so I've got my question form up. I'm going to go with question number 1. It says, this question is related to technology. It says, my student is an upcoming 6th grader who has a CCSD device from the spring. Will the device be able to be used for the upcoming school year? I'm sorry I didn't invite Ms. Hinger, our media specialist, to join us, but she would answer the same way that I am. Yes, if your child has a device from their previous school, that's the device that they are going to use for learning here at Clarke Middle School. Over the next 3 days, we're doing a digital scholar bag pickup. We're doing a drive-through from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. over on the Baxter Street side of the building, where we're going to be handing out bags that contain school supplies, some nice kind messages from teachers to your kids, as well as their math textbook. And we put the nice kind message from the teachers in there to balance out the math book, because we know how your kids are going to feel about that. But during that drive-through, during those hours from 11 to 6 on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week, the 26th, the 27th, and the 28th, if your child has a computer that's broken, that they don't have a charger for, the screen is cracked, if in some way they need a replacement device, or if they are coming from a school where they don't have a device at all, or if they're new to Clarke Middle School and Clarke County and don't have a device from last year, they can come during those hours and we can exchange a device for them. I put a form in my last parent letter, and I'll post it to Facebook again later on this evening. Our media specialist has asked that if your child needs a new or replacement device, that you fill out a form so that she can go ahead and pre-check it out to your child. And that'll just make things a lot faster for you when you come. You won't have to wait in a parking spot while we go and do a bunch of checking out. She'll just be able to bring it right out to you and send you on your way. Our next question is about instruction and open house, and I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit, but the questions are, will my son meet his teacher prior to going virtual, and will there be an open house? Yes, the answer to both of those questions is yes, absolutely. I'm going to save the rest of the answer, though, for when I talk about open house as we get ready to close up. And then the other question was, is there an approximate amount of time that he will be required to be online? That's a really good question. We have structured our daily schedule, like I said, into 5 periods a day of an hour each. And then within each of those periods, we've asked our teachers to do both a synchronous and an asynchronous portion of their lesson. So that means for about 30 minutes, your child will be engaged in a lesson in front of their computer led by a teacher. It might be 20 minutes on some days, and it might be 35 or 40 minutes on other days. There's going to be a little bit of flexibility, but in general, you can expect about 30 minutes for each class to be devoted to an online typical class experience. Now, like I said earlier, I would not expect these to be like the situation you're in right now where you're just listening to me talk. Our teachers have worked really hard over the last 4.5 weeks to really investigate the tools and strategies that they can use to make these lessons engaging, to keep kids sort of moving through the lesson instead of just passively hearing things. And so I don't want you to think of that 30 minutes as just time staring at a screen. That's 30 minutes they're going to be doing something. And then the other portion of the class, the other 25 minutes, if we take out our transition time, is going to be an asynchronous activity. That might look like a reading that they're doing to prepare for the next day's class. It might look like an assignment or an activity or a problem set that they're doing to practice what they learned in the lesson from that day. Or it might be that some students are going to work on activities like that, and then small groups, pairs, or individuals are staying with this teacher to get some one-on-one or some small group attention. And so in general, you can expect 5 periods a day. You can expect of those 5 periods to have about 30 minutes of in each of those periods to be 30 minutes of required online time, and then about 25 minutes of asynchronous work where they would not necessarily have to be online. I'll also, before I move on to the next question, I do just want to say that's a really, I know that the combination of synchronous and asynchronous instruction is a big conversation within our parent community. And we are going to be adjusting as we go. We're going to listen to the feedback that we get. If we get to the end of week 1 and we realize that the way that we've structured those periods is just fundamentally not working for the majority of our students, we're going to go back and we're going to come up with another plan. That's part of being in a situation like we're in. We're treating everything as a problem that has a potential solution. We just have to figure out what the best solution is for our school community. Another question is, how accessible will teachers be? And I don't know, Mr. Batson or Ms. Lang, do either of you want to weigh in on that one before I say what I think?
Absolutely. I do know that we are going to be as responsive as we can to email within 24 hours. If we don't have an actual answer, just getting back to you, letting you know that we are in the process of getting an answer for you. A lot of teachers also have a Google Voice number that you'll see on content websites and grade level websites. We are kind of practicing the more is better. The more places our contact info is, the more likely is you'll find it. So we're posting that everywhere we can post it. And every teacher kind of has a preference, either email or phone, but we're trying to be as responsive as we can to parent questions and student questions.
And so our typical school expectation is that you should expect a response within about 24 hours. If you do have an immediate need or an emergency that arises, you're always welcome to call the front office, regardless of whatever situation is going on with whether teachers are teaching from school or teaching from home. We will have at least a skeleton crew here in the building, including myself, that can answer any burning questions that you have. As far as those first couple of days, I'm going to take this as an opportunity to say we are going to create some structures where there are multiple avenues for you or your child to request assistance in those first couple of days of school. So like if your child is clicking on the Zoom link in their schedule, and I'll explain what those schedules are going to look like in just a few minutes, and they're not getting into their class and they're not sure what to do or where to go, we're going to make sure that there are some links very generally posted so that students can go and get some assistance from someone here in the building. The other thing that we've been trying to do in terms of communication with our school community is we have worked as a faculty this week and at the end of last week over creating some really consistent communication structures. So we're going to have a distance learning landing page that will be linked to our main Clarke Middle webpage. That's where you can go for all the information that you're going to need for distance learning, including our orientation activities next week. And then all of our teams will also have websites that delve a little deeper into the specific things that you need to know about a child's content in their class. So 6th grade social studies, like Mr. Batson teaches, for example, will have a web page that is devoted to just the content from their class, where they will post updates regularly so that as a parent, if you want to keep up with what's going on, you know you can always go to that one place and get that information. And then again, we're trying to make sure that we're communicating clearly and regularly. And so if you check our Facebook page, you check your campus messenger notifications, those are really good ways to make sure that you're staying informed about what's going on. Our next question is, how will students sign up for the Clarke Scholars Program? Mr. Batson, do you mind taking that one too?
Sure. One of the things we're trying to challenge ourselves with is really trying to maintain as many of the clubs and opportunities that we have done in the past. And obviously we'll have to kind of re-envision those things through a virtual lens. I do know that the people who are in charge of Clarke Scholars are working on trying to find a way to make that best fit in a virtual environment, while also allowing for an easy transition back when we do come back face-to-face safely. So you should be on the lookout for information within the first week or two of school about how to kind of sign up or apply for Clarke Scholars.
Man, I promised myself I wasn't going to start talking while I was still muted during this, but I've done it, so at least it's out of the way. To follow up on what Mr. Batson said about Clarke Scholars, that really applies to all of our clubs and organizations. Wherever possible, we're going to try to continue having things like our FFA club, like our Math Counts club, and we're going to organize those digitally. And so if those were some of the things that really made the middle school experience a positive experience for your child, know that wherever possible, we are going to continue trying to offer those experiences. As long as we're sort of talking about extracurriculars, I'll also just take this moment to say, for the time being, we have canceled all of our fall sports seasons. We did not foresee any reality in which we would be able to return to in-person instruction and also return to in-person workouts, training, and practice schedules in a way that would be safe for kids. And so we have chosen to postpone or to cancel our fall sports seasons. As far as winter sports, which are basketball, cheerleading, oh, my mind's going blank. Help me out, Mr. Batson.
Some of the other ones are offered through the high school, like wrestling and swimming and diving.
And so for those winter sports, the middle school principals have agreed that we are going to reevaluate the situation in early October, so that we can be prepared to share what our decision is about winter sports well ahead of when those seasons would start. Our next two questions are kind of similar, so I'm going to try to address them together. One says, will students be allowed to save or record the Zoom lecture? And the other one is, will teachers upload their Zoom lectures in the Google Classroom? And so, yes, we do have the functionality to record Zoom sessions. The one barrier that we run up against is once you start recording, let's say 4 Zoom sessions per class or per teacher times 48 teachers who are teaching Zooms at any given time, it starts to create a lot of storage space. So I don't necessarily think that our practice is going to be to record every Zoom all the time through the entire Zoom lesson. What I think a lot of our teachers are planning to do is to record the direct instruction part of their lesson. So if a math teacher is, for example, explaining how to approach or solve a new problem, they might record that portion of the lesson, but not necessarily record the work session where students are working with her or in small groups to solve that problem. And so those sorts of additional supplemental resources will be posted to Google Classrooms, and teachers will be able to disseminate those in other ways as well. As far as whether students can record the Zoom lecture, I honestly don't know. And that sounds like a really good opportunity for me to beta test something with my kid at home. And so that will go on my list to do this week. I do think they have the capacity to record the Zoom lecture, but I believe they have to request permission from the host of the meeting, which would be their teacher. And if the teacher provides permission, they would be allowed to do that. I do want to point out, in case anybody is worried about privacy and their child being in a video that's being recorded either by a teacher or by another student, there are settings within Zoom that we can set so that the speaker or the teacher or the presentation is what gets recorded, but not necessarily the faces of all of the students in the classroom as well. So you don't need to worry about your child's face or their messy bedroom. I know that's what I worry about with my kid, being broadcast on YouTube for the whole world to see. And it looks like our last question is, will students be able to check books out of the Clarke Middle Library this fall? Yes, I'm really proud that our school media specialist, Ms. Hinger, had the very first thing she said when we made the decision that we were going to start the year virtual was, how am I getting books into the hands of kids? And so she's been working diligently together in consultation with our school nurse and other health professionals to identify what are some safe ways that we can turn our library into sort of a drive-through resource supply. We're very fortunate that our car rider loop is right there on the side of the building where our library is, and our library has an outside door. So we do expect to be able to check books out as well as provide computer and technical assistance through our school media center. What we are going to ask people to do is to schedule the times that they come. We're not going to be able to do just a drop in, but we will be able to schedule times to come in to get reading resources and to get technology resources. All right. Well, we are, let's see, a week and 3 days away from the start of school. And so we do have some events coming up that I want to make sure that everybody knows about. Like I said earlier, over the next 3 days, we're going to be doing a drive-through scholar bag pickup. So that means you can drive through anytime between 11 and 6. You don't have to make an appointment to drive through and grab a bag. It should be short, sweet, very easy. We're going to hand you a blue string bag through your window. We're going to ask you what your kid's name is so we can mark off that we've given them one. And that bag will contain some school supplies, a copy of this year's code of conduct, an agenda to help your child keep themselves organized, as well as their math textbook, which is a consumable textbook. And so that means they can write in it. All of you who have been asking me about math textbooks for the last 5 years, this is the year we finally have a math textbook, and it's coming home, and I'm really excited about it. And then each of our grade levels has also put some special items in those bags just to show kids that they're thinking about them and they care about them. Some messages of support and encouragement, as well as some additional just sort of fun school supplies that might not necessarily be necessary, but they thought your kids might enjoy. And so that's taking place Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of this week from 11 to 6 on the Baxter Street side of the building. Next week, we are also hosting our student and parent orientation. So on Tuesday, September the 1st, we're going to have 6th grade orientation from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. On Wednesday, September the 2nd, will be 7th grade from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And on Thursday, September the 8th, it will be 8th grade from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. That's a longer orientation than we've usually done. We typically do about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. We blocked the whole 2 hours because what that morning will look like for your kids is we're going to do a brief meet and greet where they can meet some of the members of the team that might not necessarily be their teachers, but who they might need for support. Things like our administrative team, our student services and counseling team, our school nurse, our school social worker, those sorts of folks. And then they're going to have a chance to actually walk through their entire schedule and visit every single Zoom classroom space that they're going to be expected to go to during the day. And so we will be sharing student schedules with them on Monday, August 31st, if not earlier. That's the earliest we've ever been prepared to share student schedules with them. And I'm really proud of my scheduling team for making that happen. Those schedules will come with the time slot that each class is scheduled for, the period that it is, the teacher that your student has been assigned to, and a direct link to the Zoom classroom space. So if your student bookmarks or just holds that schedule document that we're going to email up in their computer, really just perpetually, they should have no problem getting to the Zoom classroom space that they need to go to. And then in addition, on Thursday, I believe I've scheduled it from 5 to 6, I'm going to do a parent orientation. And I don't want you to think you're not welcome to do the student orientation with your child. You're absolutely welcome to walk through that with them, but we know that some parents will be working and it won't be possible. And so we're also offering an opportunity just for parents to get a feel for what an online lesson will look like. And I'm going to do that on Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. of next week. I believe that was, what did I say that was? That was September the 3rd. And I am going to teach parents a model lesson. So I'm going to show you what it looks like to be a student in one of our classrooms. I'm going to make you do all the things that we're going to make your kids do. You're going to have to go into a breakout room and you're going to have to, add your feedback to the Mentimeter. Everything that we're going to ask your kids to do, you're going to have to do too, so you can get a feel for what instruction will look like in a virtual setting. And then at that point, we will be ready to move into our first week of school. School starts sharp, 9 a.m. sharp on September the 8th. And we are excited to get ready to welcome your kids. We're sad not to see them face to face. We're sad not to welcome them into this building. It's been a very lonely, very empty building over the summer and in last spring, but we are still excited to get instruction started on September the 8th. So does anybody have any words of wisdom they want to leave us with before we finish for the evening? If I were really mean, I would put Mr. Batson on the spot and ask him to leave us with a joke. He helps us end our leadership and our faculty meetings regularly with a joke, but I'm not going to make you.
No jokes today, but just really excited to see these kids and to get middle school started.
Well, thank you all so much for listening to us tonight. We hope that this was informative and that you're walking away with at least some of your questions answered. Again, know that we'll continue to host question and answer sessions live over the weeks leading into school. And like I said, we'll do them as often as we need to so that you can feel like you're being communicated with. So I hope everybody has a good night, and we will see you on September 8th, if not before.